Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Let's go build something cool. Today we bring you what I call our ultimate work truck package. We do this in several different variations. I actually built out a similar one a year ago for this guy's boss. We did Carly and Fox's on that one. This one, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to trying this bilstein kit. This is the 5160 kit with the reservoirs. So it's gonna do leveling, and it's also going to take care of a little more travel with the shocks. They've got resis, and it's got the new coil springs. Of course, the 5160s for the rear that match with the resis. B&W turnover gooseneck. Got our Kurt hitch. Got our airlift quick shot control system, and I actually like these Ready Lift track bars. They do a really good job of being able to recenter the front end so that we don't have problems with alignment and the tires sticking weird on one side and funky steering, and also death wobble. No death wobble. Death wobble's bad. What child is this? I don't know. You better stay tuned. You better like, subscribe, ring the bell, do the notification thing, tell all your friends, and you too can also see how we do a U-joint conversion on that guy. Lots of cool stuff coming. Hashtag BuildCoolS, that's what we do. Check it out. We got work to do. All right guys, so Trevor and I were just getting the track bar busted loose on the F250 here. Check this out. This bolt, right here. This bolt right here gets torqued to 305-ish foot-pounds, if I remember correctly. We'll look it up before we finalize, but it's a big girl to get off of there. It's a 30 millimeter. So in order to do 30 millimeter, you're gonna need this. This is a 3/4 drive breaker bar. So with a large enough lever, I can move the world. So now that that's loose, you can put a crescent wrench or whatever you need to on the other side, get it loose. We'll get that track bar out of the way. Then we'll support the diff and drop the shocks and let the coils fall out. We'll show you that here in just a second. All right, so the driver's side is put together, looking pretty. Final fitment on the reservoir is once we get the weight on it, and we've got the brakes where we can move at bump, so we don't want to trash the caliper into the reservoir. So that may need to adjust a little bit. You always want to verify that before you send a car home or take off on your first trail adventure. We did loosen the radius arm bolt right back here. You don't have to take that out, but it is going to be in bushing bind. So you just want to take the load off of it. The front radius arm bolts, you don't have to worry about those. The biggest trouble we had was getting a little bit of compression on the coil in order to get it in place. I did wind up grabbing my coil spring compressor and just pushing it down maybe like, I don't know, 1.5 inches or so, like that. It didn't take a whole lot, but it did take some in order to get this spring seat to mount. There's an 18 millimeter bolt right down in here, and you want to make sure that you get that centered up. While we had the tension on the coil, I went ahead and let it off, but really while you have the tension on the coil, you kind of want to wiggle this around, use a pry bar, kind of push against right here, use a hammer, kind of tap it around and get that bolt to drop down into the threads. It was a little cattywampus, so I made sure to start it by hand before I put a wrench on it. And to do that, we took a floppy head 3/8 with this 18 deep on it, and you've got to fit it between the coils. So you want it at full droop before you install the shock. That way you've got all the open coil space. And then in order to get the wrench out, stick a pry bar in right against the frame and just kind of open those coils up just a little bit in order to get that head of that ratchet out. If you have a thinner head ratchet, this one's pretty thick, that may work better for you. Just make sure you put some anti-seize on that 18mm down in the bottom, which is what, at M14, something like that. You don't want that to get funky. That thing's a pretty harsh environment. So anyways, on to the passenger side. Okay, and we're back. The front suspension went together nicely. We have gone ahead and removed the rear shocks because I've done these goosenecks on these F250s before, and a lot of times you have got to remove the shock in order to get the side plates in on the gooseneck and such. So for some reason, I can't find my 4-inch hole saw. We gotta drill a big old hole right there. I'm gonna run back to the house and see if it's there. If not, I'm headed to the hardware store, grab another one. I don't know where it's at. I'm sure it's here. But gooseneck plate, this thing weighs like umpteen pounds. This thing weighs umpteen pounds. All these parts and these pieces and all this bracketry and all this stuff, and Trevor is gonna start hanging side plates while I go find a hole saw. You know the old measure twice, cut once thing? Yeah, I'm on that, like, measure 10 times and cut 3. Alright, so for big hole saws, I like to use the bit by itself first. $25 1/8 to the edge of the hole. 45 3/4 to the center of the hole. Okay. Why not? Oh, hi.
Hello there.
All right, looks good. It's been a year or so since I've done one of these, and I remembered there was something wonky with the shock. And so something that I want to make sure everybody is privy to, when you're putting in these gooseneck hitches, you want to make sure that you go ahead and replace your shocks, because once this crossbar, this crossbar right here is in place, you cannot get the shock off. So just keep that in mind. So probably best to go ahead and throw on your set of bilsteins while we're at it, especially if you're towing and your truck has any miles whatsoever, because that shock, that hitch has to come out completely in order to replace the shock. So I'll show you here in just a sec. Let me get this put back together. All right, so it can be kind of a bear to get these shocks in when they're at full droop like this. And there's a couple of tricks. One way is to heave-ho it, compress it up, and have a punch ready. Try to put it in there like that. So then you get your bolt ready. And you can pull your punch out and lever your shock up. And just kind of work it through thusly. And then put a pry bar right here. Just put a little pressure on it. Because it never fails, you're always at an awkward angle. All right, let's go get this fuel tank. Ain't that pretty? Ta-da! Nice. Okay, well, we'll actually be able to finish this truck in one trip, so that's cool. I guess we better get back to work. And And I told Trevor when we started this, yeah, we gotta pull the shock off, because go ahead and do the shocks, because there's something to do with pulling the shock off to get the gooseneck in. And it's actually the other way around. It's the gooseneck to get the shock off. Well, what y'all can see is there's no way that you can get that shock off of there, and this bar sits, this cross brace actually sits like that. There's no way you're gonna get that off. So if you're doing a B&W gooseneck in your Super Duty, 2019 and up at least, go ahead and replace the shocks while you're at it. Making headway on our work truck package here. Steve-O, working on stuff. Steve-O, what you working on? Had to make a little bracket?
Yeah, making a little aluminum bracket here. What we've got is we're tying into the OBD2 port on the stock truck, but the mounting bracket here does not match the original mounting holes, so I'm just making a small bracket that will allow me to attach this while also utilizing the stock mounting hole or location. So yeah,
because this is like the standard since the 96 when OBD came out. This is the standard J12 style connector, I think is what it's called, something like that, J132.
Yep.
Something along those lines. I'm working on the onboard air system that's going to go inside our beautiful transfer flow 40-gallon auxiliary tank. This one's pretty cool. It's got the Trax 4 system, so it's actually going to refill the truck while driving. It's an auxiliary tank, but we've also got a pump to mount for external filling. So if you got like generators and tractors and stuff. I've done a very similar setup to this before. So the basic layout, because this is fuel in the bottom and this is all aluminum, will be mounting to the back wall. Here is our 2.5 gallon air tank. What I like to do, we'll run from the compressor straight into this T-fitting, and then that's gonna fill this tank. There's a drain that we've got on the bottom down here, and a plug here. I'll probably swap this for a flush plug. Here's our pressure switch, and it's gonna activate our compressor. Of course, we got 2 check valves. That's what's supplied with the kit. And those 2 check valves are gonna keep us from messing up our compressor, so that's cool. This 1/4 inch airline is gonna go out to the dash, and then our switch panel. So basically what we're doing is we're applying pressure full time to this valve assembly with this gauge on it, and that's gonna allow you to adjust the pressure up and down. This is a manual inflation valve, but without getting super, super expensive and super, super fancy, this is kind of the easiest way to do it. So anyway, so then that line comes back out and then up underneath to our 2 airbags, and our airbags adapt over to stainless steel AN line so that we reduce the chance of abrasion and whatnot. Coming out of this end, this is a 3/8 airline, so like a DOT brake hose for 18-wheelers. And then I have these fittings here, and this is a 1/4 inch NPT bulkhead fitting is what this is. So we'll drill a hole on the outside, and then this will actually mount thusly so that you don't have to open this toolbox in order to hook up an air chuck. It's kind of a cool way to do it. I like it. You can do here, and then that way you can reinflate your tires on your tractor, your lawnmower, your trailer, your generator, your piece of equipment, your buddy's truck, stranded motorist at the gas station, something along those lines.
beautiful.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Very nice. Trevor's having a little trouble with his hot rod. It didn't want to start today. I think we probably got a smoke starter. We'll see. I've never messed with a Kia. I don't know. Even though we used to work for Kia.
Yes, we did.
Back, like, way back in the day, we worked at a Kia dealership together.
That is no longer, well, the building is still there, but it is no longer the dealership that we used to work at.
The Kias are still there, but the owner is not.
Yeah, that's a whole different story within itself.
Careful what you spend your money on, kids. Racehorses are not always the highest ROI. So at this point, we're getting things plumbed. All our fittings are Teflon taped, and we got the box kind of dry mounted, or you know, kind of mocked in here in the tank. And no, I'm not gonna mount these with self-tapper screws, but when you've got a bolt pattern like this and you don't want to have to spend a bunch of time laying it out and worrying about getting it wrong, you can actually just mount it with self-tappers, especially if it has a funky pattern, and then you just come in and take those back out. Just take those back out, and then that way you've got pilot holes drilled for your real bolts. So you don't have to spend a bunch of time doing a wonky bolt pattern layout and worrying about getting it wrong. That way your holes are pre-drilled. Now you could leave this with self-tappers, but that's not what we're doing here. We're doing top quality work here. So as you can see, now our holes are laid out and we've got pilot holes for our permanent hardware. Let's get this bolted in and then we'll test it, make sure everything's holding pressure. Okay, now that we've got that part taken care of, attaching this swivel fitting back in here. Attaching this swivel fitting back in here is going to be a bear because you got like no room to swoopy-doo on there. So right now I've got one bolt holding it from falling and one just loosely holding it in. So we're going to drop the tank one more time, and that is going to let us be able to actually access that fitting and get it good and tight, because I have had those not want to seal before. Yep, this fitting does swivel. It's designed to swivel right here. So we'll put some Teflon tape on here, and then we're going to get this snugged down while we've got room to work. Then we'll get it mounted into position. One thing I've noticed on these tanks, not so much the brass fittings and such, but the tanks themselves, because of welding, the plugs that are in the ports can be really coarse on the threading. So a couple of these, when they didn't go in very smoothly, I went ahead and ran a tap through them. I just made sure I put grease on the tap so that the tap would catch the shavings and it wouldn't wind up all in here, and then I blew it out with compressed air. Okay, that ought to check that, and then we can hook this up to this side of the pressure switch, and then we'll get a power wire and run off the jump box or a spare battery, and we'll check our fittings for leaks. The last thing we need to check is our air port, or our air outlet. So this is for hooking up your inflation hose with. And so I'm going to snug all this up, put some tape on it, and then this will get us going. And we'll put some air line between these two, and that'll get us set up so that we can check it. So we got our handy dandy power probe hooked up to the truck batteries. Everything is plumbed. We've got our pressure gauge mocked up for testing. And at this point, we're going to see if we can get some juice to this thing. We have a ground, so that's nice. We're going to go here. We're going to go making pressure now. Sweet. So while I've been working on plumbing on the onboard air system, Steve-O has been doing this right here. Come check this out. This is cool. Ah! Yeah, we need some light in here, but that's okay. That's okay. This console's out. The seat is out. And the last time I did one of these, we mounted the gauge right in this vicinity so that you can just pop the console open and but you don't have to see it. And these fancy new trucks have so much fancy interior that you can't like hang a gauge switch apparatus anywhere. So it worked out well for this guy's buddy that we did the first one on, and then his coworker that we did the second one on. So we're gonna do it that way on this one. I like it. It doesn't take up very much room. And we're back after the weekend. All that other work we just showed you went down on Saturday. It's Monday, and we working. So, these are our air supply lines. They have been chased through the floor. There is a nice little port right about where that push pin is, right about there. And so what we've done is Steve has installed our module for our fuel system and the switch on the dash right there, Trevor. Yep, that one right there. And so that all hooks into our refueling system, which also holds our onboard air system. So this all gets installed at once. As you can tell, the interior's out, obviously, or the console and the seat are, so we have access, and so we can trace stuff under here. So at this point, we've got a supply line coming from the pressure side of our air system, and then this line is gonna go out to our bags. So we got a console to put back in. So I got a few pieces of hardware to put in these vicinities right in here. And then this guy gets supply to the backside of the switch, this little manual valve, and then your bag pressure is tied into the gauge. So that way it can tell you how much pressure you have in the gauge for reference. All right, there's the end of it. We got her all set up. As you can see, we got the fresh Rhino liner, and we've got our fueling tool combo from Transfer Flow all bolted down. Onboard air is set. We got a fitting that we have to replace in order to get the secondary pump to mount. So we're gonna come back and get that part finished up. I like to put an external port for inflating the kitties. You know, unicorn inflatables and whatnot. Of course, underneath, got our reservoir bilsteins, can't see shit. And there we go. Underneath, got our airlift bags, 5000 Ultimate Plus with bump stop. Of course, our bilsteins with resis, B&W gooseneck hitch. We've already covered this stuff in the front. Let's check out the stuff in the console. Pretty cool. You can easily inflate, easily deflate. That way you can set the pressure while you're driving. We're gonna put them at about 40 for right now. There we go. Set it at 40 for now. Mounted our power button for our traction force system right here. Customer's gonna download the app and be able to transfer fuel on the road. That's it for this one. Ultimate Work Truck Package. Let us know if we can do something similar for you. We sure appreciate it. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. And if you really like what we do, check us out on Patreon. We appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.